Good morning. Now at 8:22 this morning, BBC Essex is where you're tuned. James Whale and the Breakfast Show until 9. Now, we talked about this a little bit before. The next stage in the development of powers away from Westminster could become clearer later on. A paper's expected to be published later today announcing the interim findings of the Cabinet Committee who've been considering English votes for English laws. You may remember this was what David Cameron said outside number 10 when he said he was going to devolve more powers to Scotland, and then threw in this this little worm that seems to have upset some and excited others. What could devolution of powers, though, mean for us here in Essex? Eddie Bone is from the Campaign for English Parliament. He lives in Colchester, but he's with me in the studio this morning. Eddie, a very good morning to you. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning. How are you, James?
I'm good. Now, in 30 seconds or less, how would you like to see devolution happen here?
Well, first of all, I welcome the fact that the Conservatives acknowledging there's a real problem with how England is governed. I think we've got to establish that's a step forward. What we're saying is English votes and English laws doesn't go far enough. We need a First Minister, we need an English government, and we want equality with Wales and Scotland. It's only fair. You know, what we're saying is English votes and English laws actually probably raises more questions than actually gives answers. For example, why haven't we got an English manifesto? Scotland and Wales have them. All the main parties produce them. We urgently need one. We've got a right to have one as well, so we can argue our points. Why haven't we got a First Minister on, speaking on English concerns and behalf?
Isn't this really a retrograde step, Eddie? I mean, wouldn't it be better? Here we are. We live in a world you can get round in a day, nearly, and it's going to get smaller. I mean, nationalism is something we want to steer well clear of, don't you think?
Well, it's not about nationalism. It's about good governance.
Convince me it's not about nationalism, because as soon as you do that, people start arguing with each other. The Scots don't like the English don't like the Welsh don't like the Scots, and so it goes on.
Okay, let's look at it purely on a democratic basis. We have the potential for the first time of a coalition with the SNP in power over England. This is the SNP who've said they'll always put Scotland first.
It won't happen, though, will it?
But it is a real possibility. It is a real possibility. So they can actually push through higher taxes on England, knowing full well that their countrymen are protected from those tax hikes being put onto them. That is democratic outrage. You cannot have unaccountable MPs.
Won't happen, though, will it?
Well,
I don't think it will happen.
Because Alexander's already said that it's exactly what
he's got to get elected first, hasn't he?
Well, actually, but we are looking at a possibility after the next election of a Labour coalition with the SNP. Now, let's look at this for people of Essex, what that really means. We're looking at our services being cut back in Essex, NHS, education, while actually funding over generous funding.
Aren't you actually, what you're really doing, Eddie, is you're just spreading worry. You've got this idea that you want to have your own little enclave here in the east of England, and surely that's bad for people living together, aren't we? Shouldn't we be trying to make this more of a one nation than sort of individual countries broken up like this?
Oh, I really agree with you. I want actually England as a whole. I want, the people of England want actually be a voice for all of England. Every research coming out.
So would you like to see Scotland devolve to just being one country, Wales devolve, maybe Northern Ireland go back to being a whole with the island of Ireland? Well, would you like to see that?
I've always believed in the United Kingdom, but not at the cost of England. I don't want to see England broken up. For me, if it comes down to England being broken up to save the United Kingdom, then I would go down England being independent. That's how I would view it, because I think actually we need a strong voice for England. We have a right for that. We have a right for a First Minister speaking on our behalf. But actually, if we can do it within the United Kingdom and do it fairly, and make sure that funding is fair across the whole of the United Kingdom, which it isn't at the moment, then actually I would embrace that.
So would you be happier with these new powers, if anything comes of them, being devolved to Essex County Council, for argument's sake?
There is there's a difference between devolving power to the nations, as in Scotland and Wales and England, and decentralising power within England. I'm all for decentralising power to local communities. I think it's a great thing. We are very centralised, and actually, so I'd welcome local decision makers having more power. But that's got to be done within the sense of England. How do you hold on to England as a nation if you decentralise power to all these different areas? We're already seeing Cornwall talking about being independent. We're already talking about Yorkshire pushing for independence. We're going to see the breakup of England. An English Parliament would hold England together and actually then look at England, how it's governed, and decentralise power out to local communities. That is the best way forward. And then we can negotiate with Scotland and Wales in harmony, making sure that funding is fair.
Yeah, well, they thought of that about 500 years ago, and it all fell apart.
But it's falling apart now, that's for sure.
Well, is it really? I mean, it's just a load of politicians who are spouting hot air. The rest of us just want to live sort of peacefully together with each other. Maybe we need to have a little more control over our politicians.
Actually, I would agree with that, but I would also say that actually when we go out on the streets and all the surveys are coming back showing that the people of England are very concerned about unfair funding. They're seeing their services being reduced, knowing full well that they're being protected in Scotland.
Problem, what worries me, and they tried to push this through, was it Labour government? I'm not sure. Is another layer of government on top of what we have. You remember the big regional assemblies which never got anywhere. It sounds to me this is exactly what you want. Another layer of government. It's just going to cost us all more money.
That's not the case at all.
Who are we going to get rid of then? If we have?
First of all, what we can see is a reduction of MPs, and we have got some solid research being done now to try and actually show people this is the case. We would definitely have to look at reform of the House of Lords, which is massive at this present time. So we are looking at ways of restructuring it. A federal system would be when England would look at local issues such as education, health, etc. Defence would be under a federal government picked from those MPs already in place. It would not be another layer of government. What it would mean is that we can actually decentralise power safely, coherently and rationally to local communities.
You'd like to see Westminster, Parliament of Westminster, just an English Parliament, and then you would see a Welsh Parliament and a Scots Parliament.
I just want equality and fairness. And I think the people of England have a right for that, the same as the people of Scotland and Wales. Once we have fairness, things will settle down. Unfortunately, our politicians at Westminster aren't dealing with this issue very well.
Very, very quickly, how likely do you think it is, Eddie, that this will ever happen?
I think actually if it doesn't happen, we are seeing the breakup of the United Kingdom.
All right. Eddie Bone, thank you very much indeed. Eddie, campaigner for an English Parliament. I wonder what you think about that. 0300 200 40 41.